pre-recorded oral report. The child and adolescent learner and learning principles. Week 1. Human development, meaning, concept, and approaches. Human development refers to the physical, cognitive, and psychosocial development of human throughout lifespan. Physical domain, many of us familiar with the height and weight charts that pediatricians consult to estimate if babies, children, and teens are growing within normative ranges of physical development. Cognitive domain. If we watch and listen to infants and toddlers, we cannot help but wonder how they learn so much, so fast, particularly when it comes to language development. Brain development and the brain ability to change, compensate for losing significant cognitive functions across the lifespan too. Psychosocial domain. Development in this domain involves what's going on both psychologically and society. Human development is the pattern of movement or change that begins at conception and continues through the lifespan. Prenatal period. It involves tremendous growth from single cell to an organism, complete with brain and behavioral capabilities. Infancy. Many psychological activities are just beginning: language, symbolic thought, sensory-motor coordination, and social learning. Early childhood. Young children learn to become more self-sufficient and to care for themselves, develop school readiness and skills, and spend many hours in play with peers. Middle and late childhood. The fundamental skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic are mastered. Adolescence begins with rapid physical changes, dramatic gains in height and weight, changes in body contour, and the development of sexual characteristics such as enlargement of the breast, development of pubic and facial hair, and deepening the voice. Early adulthood. It is a time establishing personal and economic independence, career development, selecting a mate, learning to live someone in an intimate way. Middle adulthood. It is a time of expanding personal and social development and responsibility of assisting the next generation in becoming competent and mature individuals and reaching and maintaining satisfaction in a career. Late adulthood. It is a time for adjustment and increasing strength and health, life review, retirement, and adjustment to new social rules. Week 3. Teacher as consumer and users of research. Teacher as researchers, the scientific method, research design, data gathering technique. Teachers as consumer or end users of research. Research gives teachers and also policymakers important knowledge to use in decision making for the benefit of learners and their families. It can help us to be more knowledgeable about how to fit our teaching development levels of our learners. A scientific method. One important principle in research is adherence to the scientific method, since it is a scientific and logical process. The 5 stages of the scientific learners: identity and define the problem, determine the hypothesis, collect and analyze data, formulate conclusion, and apply conclusion to the original hypothesis. Research design. Researches that are done with a high level of quality and integrity provide us with valuable information about child and adolescent development. You know various research designs and different data gathering techniques used by developmental researchers. Data gathering techniques. Observation can be made in either laboratories, natural setting, and realistic. Psychological measures. Certain indicators of children development. Standardized, these are prepared tests that assess individual performance in different domains. Interview and questionnaire involves asking participants to provide information about themselves based on the interview questionnaires given by the researcher. Life history record, these are records of information about a lifetime chronology of events and activities. Week 4. Sigmund Freud's psychosexual theory. Psychosexual theory. These are called psychosexual stages because each stage represents the functions of libido on a different area of the body. Freud believed that life was built around tension and pleasure. Freud believed also that all tension was due to the build-up of libido. The three components and personality adjustment. The id. It is related to the individual's most basic needs and wants, such as the desire for food. Ego. It begins to emerge later in infancy and helps the child relate to the realities to the environment and the constraints imposed by others without losing a healthy concept of self. The superego can be thought of as something like the conscience. Ideally, it acts as a guide to behavior. It is associated with morality. Psychosexual stage of development. Oral stage. The libido is centered in a baby's mouth. Anal stage. The libido now becomes focused on the anus. Palate stage. Sensitivity now becomes concentrated in the genitals, and masturbation in both sexes becomes a new source of pleasure. Latency stage. The libido is dormant. Freud thought most sexual impulses are repressed during the latency stage. Natal stage. This is the last stage of Freud's psychosexual theory of personality development. It begins in puberty. It is a time of adolescent sexual experimentation and build relationship. Week 5. Piaget's stages of cognitive development. Basic cognitive concept. Schema. Piaget's used term schema to refer to the cognitive structure by which individuals intellectually adapt and organize their environment. Assimilation. This is the process of fitting a new experience into an existing, previously created cognitive structure or schema. Accommodation. This is the process of creating a new schema. Equilibration is achieving proper balance between assimilation and accommodation. Cognitive disequilibrium. This means there is a discrepancy between what is perceived and what is understood. Stage 1. Sensimotor stage. This is the stage when a child who is initially reflexive and grasping, sucking, and reaching becomes more organized in his movement and activity. Stage 2. Pre-operational stage. At this stage, the child can now make mental representation and is able to pretend. Stage 3. Concrete operational stage. This stage is characterized by the ability of the child to think logically but only in terms of concrete objects. Stage 4. Formal operational stage. This is the final stage that the thinking of child becomes logically. Week 6. Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory of development. Erikson drew a broader and more positively picture of what ideally should happen in each stage of development. Erikson's stages. Trust versus mistrust. Autonomy versus shame. Initiative versus guilt. Industry versus inferiority. Identity versus rule confusion. Intimacy versus isolation. Generativity versus stagnation. Integrity versus despair. Week 7. Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Kohlberg believed that moral development depended on moral reasoning and was learned in 3 levels, each having 2 stages. Number 1. Pre-conventional morality. Stage 1. Obedience and punishment behavior driven by avoiding punishment. Stage 2. Individual interest behavior driven by self-interest and rewards. Level 2. Conventional morality. Stage 3. Interpersonal behavior driven by social approach. Stage 4. Authority behavior driven by obeying authority and conforming to social order. Level 3. Post-conventional morality. Stage 5. Social contrast behavior driven by balance of social order and individual rights. Stage 6. Universal ethics behavior driven by internal moral principles. Week 8. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. Vygotsky's sociocultural theory grew from the work of seminal psychologists. According to Vygotsky, learning has its basis in interacting with other persons. Scaffolding is Vygotsky's term for the appropriate assistance given by the teacher to assist the learners accomplish a task. Social interaction. Vygotsky was more social, and Vygotsky described the learning of each individual are coming from the adult's participation. Cultural factors. Vygotsky believed in the crucial role that culture played on the cognitive development of children. Language. Vygotsky believed in the essential rules activities that when listening passively. Week 9. Bronfenbrenner illogical theory. Model, also known as the biological system theory, represent child development within the context of relationship system that comprise the child environment. Bronfenbrenner bioecological model structure of environment. Microsystem is the system closest to the person and the one in which he has direct contact. The mesosystem. This layer serves as the connection between the structure of the child microsystem. The exosystem. This layer refers to the bigger social system in which the child does not function directly. The macrosystem. This layer is found in the outermost part in the child environment. Includes the cultural values, customs, and laws. The role of schools and teachers. The school and teacher contribute stability and long-term relationship, but only to support and not to replace the relationship in the home. Week 10. Prenatal period. The stages of prenatal development is divided into 3 periods: germinal, embryonic, and fetal. Period. Prenatal development that takes place in the first 2 weeks after conception. Embryonic period. The zygote will become embryo, organogenesis. The 3 layers of the cells: endoderm, ectoderm, mesoderm. The 3 life support system: placenta, umbilical cord, and amnion. Fetal period lasts from about 2 months after conception until 9 months when the infant is born. Then, physical development of infant and toddlers. Capalocaudal trend is the postnatal growth from conception to 5 months when the head grows more than the body. Proximodistal period is the prenatal growth from 5 months to birth when the fetus growth from the inside of the body outwards. Motor development. Along this aspect of motor development, infants and toddlers begin reflexes to grow motor skills and fine motor skills. Reflexes, many reflexes which are present at birth. Some of the most common reflexes that babies have: sucking, rooting, gripping, curling, moro, gallant, and tonic. Gross motor skills. It is always source of excitement for parents to witness dramatic change in the infant's first year of life. Fine motor skills are skills that involve a refined use of the small muscles controlling the hand, fingers, and tongue. The development of these skills allows one to be able to complete tasks such as writing, drawing, and botany. Week 12. Cognitive development of infants and toddlers. Sensory-motor development. Children go through a period of dramatic growth and learning. Object permanence is used to describe a child's ability to know that objects to continue to exist even though they can no longer to be seen or heard. Language development. The child is able to use words and gestures to express his thoughts and feelings. Week 13. Socio-emotional development of infants and toddlers. Each infant and toddler develops at his or her own rate. Social-emotional development is dependent upon ongoing responsive relationship. Some infants and toddlers in your care may have conditions that affect their social-emotional development. Social-emotional development during all stages is a complex process involving other areas of development, such as cognitive skills, and it is enhanced by input from the environment. Learning about emotions and emotional expression. Infants and toddlers learn about emotions and the expression of emotion through their interaction with others. Infants and toddlers are learning how to interact and play with others, learning play and friendship skills. Week 14. Preschooler physical development. Significant changes in physical development. Physical growth increases in the preschool years, although it is much slower in phase than infancy and toddlerhood. Gross and fine motor development. Gross motor development refers to acquiring skills that involves the large muscles. Fine motor development refers to acquiring the ability to use the smaller muscles in the arm, hands, and finger purposefully. Week 15. Cognitive development of the preschoolers. Brain connections in the preschool years. Neurons that connect to each other to function. Cell connections are what we call synapses, sometimes also referred to as synapses connections. Language development. Young children's understanding sometimes gets ahead of their speech. Fast mapping, a process by which children observe the meaning of a new word after hearing it once or twice in conversations. Information processing, theory, attention, and memory. The information processing model is another way of examining the understanding how children develop cognitively. The young children's theory of mind. Theory of mind refers to individual thoughts about how mental processes work. Receptive language. Standards 1. The child is able to understand both verbal and non-verbal forms of communication. Pre-reading and pre-math. Standard 1.1. The child is able to match identical objects, colors, and shapes, symbols. Pre-reading, pre-math. Standards 1.2. The child is able to recite the alphabet and numbers in sequence. Domain cognitive development is attention and activity level. Standards 1. The child is able to sustain attention and modulate his activity at age-expected levels. High-order mental abilities. Standard 1. The child develops basic concepts pertaining to object constancy, space, time, quantity, acceleration, etc., and uses this as the basis for understanding how materials are categorized in his/her environment. Higher ordered mental abilities. Standard: the child is able to understand the cause-effect relationship. Memory. Standard 1. The child is able to recall people has met, events, and places has been to. Memory. Standard 1. The child is able to store verbal information and short and long-term memory. Higher order mental abilities. Standard 1. The child is able to follow the logic of events and draw accurate conclusion by evaluating the facts presented to him. The role of caregivers in the cognitive development of preschoolers. Learning about how preschoolers think and learn. One will realize that parents and teachers can do a lot either to help our preschoolers develop their cognitive skills and impede them.
Performance by Unyil 12